Now, the WB11 News at 10, winner of the prestigious Edward R. Murrow Award for Best Newscast in New York.
Good evening, everyone. Certainly a very busy night. Primary voters hit the polls for a second time with the still looming question mark about Rudy Giuliani's future. But first tonight, one of the largest remaining pieces of the World Trade Center South Tower is no longer standing at Ground Zero.
Workers took down a 7-story wall today to clear the way for rescue teams who continue their search through the rubble. Let's go now to Jackie Hyland, who's standing by live for us in Lower Manhattan with more on this story. Jackie.
Heidi, just before 6 o'clock, the remaining wall of Tower 2 came tumbling down. The twisted ruins seen worldwide had served as a reminder these past 2 weeks of what happened here. But today, Mayor Giuliani said it's not gone for good. He hopes to restore the structure and use it as a memorial to the victims. Just for a moment, the largest remaining wall of Trade Center 2 wavered. Then, almost like it was surrendering, piece by enormous piece, it crashed to the ground below. The delicate structure, which survived the September 11th attack, had become a symbol of the horror inflicted on New York City by terrorists. But after 2 weeks, it was time for the wall to come down.
Once having taken down that wall, they should be able to do more recovery right in that area more freely and with more safety for the people who are doing it. We will preserve as much of that wall as possible.
Meantime, as workers continue their search and rescue efforts, the hope of finding anyone alive in the rubble has all but faded tonight. There are new numbers. 6,398 people are still missing. 279 bodies have been recovered, and of those, only 224 identified. Tomorrow, the focus will shift to finding as many human remains as possible. Also tomorrow, officials will make it easier for families whose loved ones are still missing in the ruins to collect death benefits without having to produce a body.
For those families that want to apply for death certificates and obtain them, they can start doing that tomorrow, starting at 9 o'clock at the Family Center.
Officials ask families who are ready to take this step to bring along some proof, a driver's license, evidence of your loved one's employment, for example, a pay stub. Also, proof of relationship, a marriage certificate or baptismal cert. Now, again, if you are ready to take this step, and only ready, the process begins tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock at the Family Center. That's over at Pier 94. Now, officials say it would be extremely helpful if families came in alphabetical order. Tomorrow, they're asking families with the last name, letters beginning A through G. Some 500 lawyers will volunteer their time to make this process move more quickly. We're live tonight near Ground Zero. Jackie Hyland for the WB11 News at 10. Jim, back to you.
Thank you, Jackie. In the past 2 weeks, New Yorkers have noticed real changes in our city, from tighter security to closer, more united communities. Well, now another significant change is on the way that will have a huge impact on people who drive into the city. Pamela Chan is live in Midtown now with details on this. Pam.
That's right, Jim. Get ready to carpool. Mayor Giuliani is seriously thinking that may be the answer to the horrendous traffic tie-ups we've seen at city crossings over the past couple of days. He says the number of people driving into Manhattan has returned to normal, but security checks and street closures are slowing things down. With subway ridership down 15%, the mayor says take mass transit or find someone to drive in with. This scene, city-bound at the Queens Midtown Tunnel, is all too familiar to people who've been driving into the city since the World Trade Center tragedy. Security checkpoints at all crossings have snarled traffic into hour-long delays.
I got stopped. My bag got checked. I don't mind, but it caused like at least 2-3 hour delay.
The solution, says Mayor Giuliani, is requiring cars coming into Manhattan to carry 2 or more people between the hours of 6 a.m. and noon. The crossings that fall under this policy, which starts Thursday, are the Queensboro, Williamsburg, Manhattan, and Brooklyn bridges. A decision has yet to be made about the Queens Midtown Tunnel and the Lincoln Tunnel. The mayor says the number of cars driving into the city has returned to normal, while the city's streets have not.
We're more sensitive to threats that are received than maybe 6 months ago, or not even 6 months ago, 3 weeks ago, you would have said, you know, there's another nut that's calling.
City commuters had mixed reactions to the idea.
We had to give in a little bit, all of us, in order to overcome all the difficulties that we were going through.
What if someone lives in a city and they're coming home from work and they don't have an extra person to ride with them. What does that person do?
Mayor says exceptions will be made on a case-by-case basis. There will be no fines or tickets involved. Single drivers will simply be turned away. The mayor says they picked Thursday to test this out because it is Yom Kippur, giving them time to try this out for Friday. No word yet on how long this carpool policy will last. Plans are being finalized tomorrow. We'll keep you posted. We're live tonight in Midtown Manhattan. I'm Pamela Chan for the WB11 News at 10. Kaidi, back to you.
Pamela, thank you for that. Our other top story tonight, primary day. Voters hit the polls once again today. The primary, originally set, as you know, for September 11th, was called off following the attacks. Here are the latest results so far in the race for City Hall. On the Republican side, billionaire media mogul Mike Bloomberg has earned the GOP nomination with 10% of the precincts reporting. He has gained 66% of the vote compared to just 34% for Herman Badillo. As for the Democrats, the numbers are pointing towards a runoff between public advocate Mark Green and Bronx Borough President Fernando Ferrer. They were the frontrunners. Right now, they are just neck and neck. There were the frontrunners before September 11th with 13% reporting. Green and Ferrer, as you can see, are neck and neck, each with about 33% of the vote. City Council Speaker Peter Ballone has 19% of the vote, and City Comptroller Alan Hevesy, 13%.
Well, Michael Bloomberg has been considered the Republican frontrunner throughout the race, and tonight it appears he does have a convincing win and will be the GOP candidate come November to face the Democrat, whoever that might be. Marvin Scott joins us now with more from the Bloomberg campaign.
Right, Jim. No big surprise because all along the polls have been indicating that Michael Bloomberg would be the runaway winner of the Republican primary. But in the aftermath of the attack on New York and the nation, it was expected to be a little closer finish than many had expected, considering that for the past 2 weeks, Bloomberg's familiar face has disappeared from TV screens.
I love the city.
Bloomberg spent some $20 million on the primary, mostly in TV commercials that helped him become a household name. With politics coming to a halt 2 weeks ago, he lost out on that planned final blitz to get out the message. Today, as he cast his own vote, he was hopeful that message was still resounding in the minds of Republicans throughout the city. Throughout the campaign, Bloomberg had argued that with his business prowess, he could do for New York what he did for his media empire that helped him build a $4 billion fortune. That has led challenger Herman Badillo to decry Bloomberg as a man trying to buy the election. Bloomberg arrived at his campaign headquarters in Midtown Manhattan a couple of hours ago with his daughter and a niece. He greeted campaign workers in a room decorated in red, white, and blue. The atmosphere there was subdued. That is, until the Associated Press declared him the winner. Bloomberg is expected to have a statement a little later on. Meantime, Herman Badillo had hoped that a low turnout would have helped him because he all along has painted Bloomberg as a Democrat turned Republican. And traditionally in New York primaries, it's the diehard Republicans who turn out in force. With Mayor Giuliani expected to endorse the Republican candidate, and provided he's not staying on for another term himself, given his overwhelming popularity, that could be a mighty big boost for Mike Bloomberg in November.
Very interesting. Thank you, Marvin. Well, turning now to the Democratic primary. Of the four major candidates competing for the nomination, it will likely come down to two frontrunners, as we've been saying all along, Mark Green and Fernando Ferrer. We go first to Mary Murphy, who's standing by live for us at Mark Green headquarters in the Sheraton in Midtown. Mary.
Kaidi, a very subdued gathering here, as you can imagine. Mark Green has been public advocate for 8 years, but tonight he told us he's confident he will be the 108th mayor of New York City, even though it seems that he's heading for a runoff with Bronx Borough President Fernando Ferrer because neither man, it seems, received 40% of the vote. There are some indications that the voting was along racial lines. Now, tonight we have some tape. We talked to Mark Green and his wife, Denny, as they waited for early returns in their hotel suite. Green says he doesn't think Mayor Giuliani cast a shadow on this primary today by his public flirtation yesterday with staying in office. Green says the September 11th terror attack cast a shadow on this primary. Green and the mayor have had a difficult relationship, but Green has taken pains to praise the mayor's handling of the crisis. But Green says the democratic process must go on. Are you confident tonight that on January 1st, the normal process will occur and
Yes,
there will be a new mayor in Gracie Mansion?
Yes, I am. For 200 years, there have been elections, even involving commanders-in-chief in wartime, in the Civil War, in World War I, and World War II. The beauty of democracy is that it's bigger than any president or any mayor.
Now, Green supporters include former Mayor David Dinkins, the first African-American mayor of New York City. And tonight, David Dinkins said that he hopes that Mayor Giuliani doesn't try to extend his term of office. He said that the mayor can leave on a high note because of his much praised handling of the Trade Center crisis. Giuliani's first police commissioner, Bill Bratton, is also here, and it's no secret that he would like to return to public life. We're seeing now a gathering in the first couple of rows of some of the VIPs, the supporters of Mark Green. We're hearing that he may be ready to come down in a few minutes. If he does come to make a speech, we'll get back to you. Reporting live from the Sheraton, I'm Mary Murphy. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Mary, thank you very much. Now let's get some reaction from the candidate who is, as we've been telling you, likely to face Green in a runoff. Kathy Hobbs is live at Fernando Ferrer's headquarters in Lower Manhattan. She joins us now with more from there. Kathy.
Jim, the mood has been upbeat for much of the night here at Ferrer headquarters. Like many candidates, Fernando Ferrer spent today still campaigning, still trying to get out the vote. On this delayed primary day, exactly 2 weeks since the World Trade Center disaster, Ferrer was in Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, and the Bronx, still encouraging people to cast their vote in this election that will decide our next mayor. Early this morning, Fernando Ferrer himself cast his vote at a polling place in Riverdale before making campaign stops that included senior centers and train stations in 4 of the 5 boroughs. In recent weeks, this truly did become a very, very tight race, with polls putting Fernando Ferrer slightly ahead of Democratic candidate Mark Green, who was in the lead for much of the campaign. Ferrer, who has been the Bronx borough president for the last 14 years, campaigned on the theme that he is the mayor for all New Yorkers, saying that predicting that his record in the Bronx will help him go all the way to City Hall. He said that he credits the revitalization of the Bronx during his term since he has been Bronx borough president. Issues such as education, health care, and a partnership between the community and police were also some of the issues of the Ferrer campaign. But after the World Trade Center disaster, many of his supporters specifically look to what he has done in the Bronx, saying that that is what will put Ferrer over the top.
We've been through a terrible period, and the city has been devastated, and it has to be rebuilt. When Freddie Ferrer took over as borough president of the Bronx had been devastated. It was the poster child for urban blight. Nobody wanted to live there. Nobody wanted to do business there. And he changed that. He turned it around. He brought people together.
If we're looking for the candidate that not can talk about rebuilding the city, but that has rebuilt part of the city, Freddie Ferrer is heads and shoulders above it. He's already done that. And that's why I think he got a good vote today.
Again, it is still anyone's race at this point, with 13% of the precincts reporting. Mark Green has 33% of the vote. Fernando Ferrer was 33% of the vote. Fernando Ferrer is expected to join his supporters here in Lower Manhattan the next half hour or so. If that happens, we will bring it to you. For now, I'm Kathy Hobbs reporting live in Soho. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, Kathy. But it's not over yet. City Council Speaker Peter Vallone, who you could see often behind Mayor Giuliani during the first 2 weeks after that terrible tragedy on September 11th, he remains optimistic, even though early returns show he is still far behind frontrunners Mark Green and Freddie Ferrer. As things have been pretty subdued at all the other headquarters, let's go now to Lolita Lopez, who is standing by live at Vallone campaign headquarters, and see what's going on there. Lolita.
All right, Heidi. Well, it's gained some momentum here at the Vallone camp after some supporters have been trickling in, and there's some music playing behind us lightly in the background. Now, that was due to the city council speaker's arrival about half an hour ago. Now, he came in with his wife, Tina, and his middle son, Perry. And, of course, as you said, he's kept a toned-down campaigning after the September 11th terrorist attacks. He has kept my Mayor Giuliani's side and hopes this close relationship with the mayor and his lengthy experience in city politics will bolster his run, but says our national tragedy has significantly put a strain on this campaign.
It wasn't just us who was attacked. There's a whole country that was attacked. There's all the principles we stand for. So I think all of us have to stand together. And all of us have to unite behind whoever emerges as the new mayor, as we would behind the new president. I think that's very important.
But he certainly says it is not over. He is not looking at the exit polls and waiting for the official numbers to come out later on and for some more significant numbers. As for now, he's sitting with his family about a floor behind underneath us, and he's also waiting for his son, Peter Jr., who is running for his position as city council speaker. So the family is sticking together and waiting for those final numbers. We're live at the Vallone camp. Throwing back to you. I'm Lolita Lopez here.
Okay, Lolita, thank you very much. The polls were also open in Nassau County today for voters to choose who's going to be on the Democratic ticket for Nassau County Executive. And here are the preliminary numbers from that race. It's a tight one. Assemblyman Thomas DiNapoli and Glen Cove Mayor Thomas Swatsy are neck and neck, each of them, with roughly 50% of the votes. That is, however, with only 5% of the precincts reporting. For a complete analysis of the Nassau County executive race and a rundown of other local races, be sure to pick up tomorrow's Long Island edition of Newsday.
Well, as you can imagine, confusion was the word of the day for many voters who live in lower Manhattan. Several polling places downtown were relocated because of the disaster, leaving a lot of residents unsure about where they should be casting their ballots. Julian Phillips has that part of the story.
A flurry of activity at the Jefferson Market Library in the Village, and primary day did not come without a bit of confusion.
There's no indication for people to learn the change of location.
Jefferson Market Library is one of 7 temporary polling places for voters in districts near the World Trade Center, whose buildings where they would normally vote were condemned because of the September 11th attack. A tent was placed outside of PS3 in the Village to accommodate voters. This because of the overcrowded conditions inside the school. Children from other schools near the World Trade Center are attending school here. Voters were supposed to be notified by mail of the temporary polling sites, and some say they were. But at the Gay and Lesbian Center polling site, some people who were directed here are not supposed to be here.
Right.
So I guess what we're saying is even with all of this, there's a little bit of confusion.
Confusion. That's right. And then the other thing, we don't have enough people, enough workers.
Some suggested the temporary polling places did not add any more to the usual chaos of the New York City election process. Confusion aside, people are voting in these displaced districts, but the question of the day is not where people are voting, but how they feel about our mayor staying on for possibly another term as our leader.
To do the write-in vote, you would come here, you push this button.
Indeed, provisions were made for write-in ballots, and this response from voters in our unscientific poll.
I think the mayor has done an outstanding job. I think if there's an exception to be made, it should be for him and for him alone.
If they want to extend his term, if they can do that without changing the law to give him another 6 months or a year, but I don't think it should be changed for another term.
I think the process should go on the way it is.
But even if the voters write Rudy in, because of term limits, those votes would be declared invalid. I'm Julian Phillips for the WB11 News at 10.
Coming up, more on what's being done to tighten security in the skies in the wake of the terror attacks, and that is the subject of tonight's Tell Us at 10. Do you think commercial airline pilots should be allowed to carry guns on board? Log on to WB11.com, cast your vote, and we will, of course, have results later on in this newscast.
We told you it was a busy night. When we come back on the news at 10, Mr. G will be here with his first look at the weather.
And the plot just gets more twisted. Did the hijackers want to use dangerous chemicals in their attack?
And the New York Jets give their support to New York's bravest. We'll be back in 60 seconds.
This portion of the news brought to you by Volkswagen. On the road of life, there are passengers and there are drivers.
Definitely feeling a little bit more like fall today. A little rain, a little cold
The
towards
rain
the
got out of the
evening.
way
Right.
and cold air moved in. Mr. G's here now with his first look at our weather. G?
That's the weather posse over there. For us, the UV index 5, that'll be the deal for tomorrow, everybody. And once again, time to burn about 60 minutes. Let's talk good news. In around the tri-state area, that's the radar put into motion. Everything beginning to move away from us. Again, west to east, get it out of here. We're going to widen the shot, unstable air across the Ohio Valley. We'll pinwheel around. So again, sun and clouds tomorrow. Not a bad day tomorrow, as Cutting Jim said, cooler. Zooming in, the rain over with southeast. The rain ends here. The dry air will arrive tomorrow. Midweek good. Thursday, Friday, 5-day forecast. All that later on. Jim?
Thank you, G. More potential threats to the U.S. are being uncovered tonight. Today, Attorney General John Ashcroft warned a Senate subcommittee about a new chemical danger that may be lurking. Howard Thompson is here now with more on that and the complete investigation. Howard.
Jim, thank you very much. The Attorney General told lawmakers in Washington today that the associates of the terrorists that committed the September 11th attacks could still be in the United States, even though authorities admit so far there is no direct connection between 300 detainees and the 19 hijackers. Ashcroft went on to say the terrorism threat is a turning point in American history. With each passing day, more new information from authorities hunting down suspects in the September 11th terror attack. Today, U.S. Attorney General John Ashcroft said people with links to the hijackers tried to obtain licenses to transport hazardous materials.
Today, I can report to you that our investigation has uncovered several individuals, including individuals who may have links to the hijackers, who fraudulently have obtained or attempted to obtain hazardous material transportation licenses.
The Attorney General went on to say at least 2 people detained in the investigation, one from Detroit and the other in Chicago, had licenses to transport chemicals and other hazardous materials. Even though the ban on crop dusting flights has been lifted, reports out of Florida indicate one of the hijackers, Mohammed Atta, who visited a Florida crop dusting company several times, tried to obtain a government loan to buy a crop dusting plane, but was turned down. Officials in Hamburg, Germany say Atta, when he was a student there, seemed to be an ordinary person. However, in May of 2000, he obtained a tourist visa for the United States and a new passport. Authorities now believe he knew what he was going to do and how he was going to die. In France, anti-terrorist police arrested 4 people on Tuesday in connection with planned attacks on the U.S. Embassy in Paris. This as the international community severs its ties with Afghanistan and the U.S. military begins its hunt for Osama bin Laden. The problem now is finding him.
I believe he's still in Afghanistan. I believe bin Laden is not that sort of person who would actually run away and hide. He's a man who, he told me personally, he would like to die as a martyr.
President Bush says the U.S. will take him dead or alive, but historically, Afghanistan has been a giant killer.
If I had a crystal ball, I'd say he's going to stay in Afghanistan. Nothing would make him happier than to lead another jihad against the U.S. in a country that has been a graveyard for empires, and he thinks he can do that again.
And just a footnote to all of this, the New York Times reported today that some investigators believe the hijackers were able to keep their plans secret by letting only one member of each team know that the planes would be crashed into buildings. The others may have believed the jets would be landed at an airport where demands would be made. Jim and Katie?
Remarkable.
Thank you, Howard. A hero's memorial today for commanding officer of the Port Authority Police who is missing in the attack. Anthony Infante Jr. saved hundreds of lives during the disaster. Pauline Liu reports.
Tearful goodbyes today at a church in Summit, New Jersey for Port Authority Police Inspector Anthony Infante Jr. Friends and family say the 47-year-old commanding officer for Kennedy and LaGuardia airports died while leading hundreds of evacuees out of the World Trade Center. Those who knew him say his final act of heroism came as no surprise.
He knew the danger when he was running in, and I wasn't surprised to know he didn't come out, because he wouldn't have come out until everybody else was out.
Didn't surprise anybody that he would give his life for others, because he gave himself constantly.
Inspector Infante was at a Port Authority meeting in Jersey City when he heard about the attack on the World Trade Center. He rushed there to help. He was last seen inside Tower 1, assisting in the evacuation. Infante, who's from Chatham, New Jersey, worked for the Port Authority for 20 years and was no stranger to crisis. Last summer, he supervised the arrest of a gunman who had taken passengers hostage at Kennedy Airport.
I'm not sure that you could ever convince or stop somebody that's determined to commit a crime from committing it. My question would be, what happened after it was committed? And according to the plans, everything was done exactly like it was supposed to.
Acting New Jersey Governor Donald DeFrancesco, New York Governor George Pataki, and Mayor Rudy Giuliani all spoke at the service, calling the inspector a hero responsible for saving hundreds of lives. Though the gun salute was followed by the playing of taps, this was not a funeral, but a memorial mass. The inspector remains among the missing. His wife and 2 children were presented with an American flag for his service that went well beyond the call of duty. In New Jersey, I'm Pauline Liu for the WB11 News at 10.
All right, as we told you, Michael Bloomberg is the winner of the GOP primary for mayor. Let's go to him now making his acceptance speech.
From the current administration, and together we are going to take New York forward. And I want to say thank you, I can never say thank you enough, to the over 3,000 volunteers who have made the difference in this campaign. These dedicated believers in New York were the ones who went out and got the signatures to get us on the ballot, distributed the literature, and offered the advice. They were our competitive edge, and I wanted to say thank you. And also, having my mother, my sister, my daughter, and my former wife all working every day for me has been just one of the great experiences. It really is a family affair. If I had any fear over the last 4 months, it was that I would disappoint them, and I hope I have not. My thoughts today are also with those who will not be successful on this election day. I now know how hard it is to run for office, and I can imagine how painful it must be to have their dreams dashed. I appreciate all their courtesy and advice that they have given to me over the last few months, and I certainly plan to reach out to all of them to get their advice and to include them in anything I do. This city needs as many people working together as we can possibly do, and I know they will be very helpful. Now, thank you. During the past 14 days, our focus has been on grieving and on helping each other. We haven't solicited votes, and we really haven't talked about politics. We've been dealing with an emergency. But now we are weeks away from the general election, and we will have a campaign of ideas and a campaign of solutions. I have laid out specific plans to improve education in this city, public safety, transportation, and housing. I've talked about our economy and the urgent need to rebuild our financial sector. I will release a detailed economic development plan over the next few weeks. And I've repeatedly said that our city is poised to enter a new, better era. We can't go back.
That is Republican candidate now, Michael Bloomberg, winner of the mayoral primary tonight on the GOP side, defeating Herman Badillo by an almost 2-to-1 margin. Back now to the fallout from the World Trade Center disaster. As we reported earlier, beginning tomorrow, the city is going to allow the families of those still missing to apply for death certificates. But for some of those families, a confirmation of death without any remains offers perhaps too much closure at this time. Vanessa Tyler spoke to one woman who refuses to give up hope.
Lila Negron can't do it. She hears what Mayor Giuliani is saying. It makes sense, but she can't. Just can't.
I'm not getting a death certificate, not until I have some sort of closure. Something I need to know something, because in my heart I still have hope that he's someplace.
Some see applying for a death certificate as admitting that there is a death, admitting that their loved one won't be rescued from the rubble and won't be coming home.
The only fear that I have is them not finding him at all. That's my biggest fear.
Not finding the body of 35-year-old Pete Negron is more than his wife Lila could bear, leaving no closure for a relationship she's had since she was 16 years old. He was the boy she loved to watch play baseball, love of her life, the father of her 2 children. Ironically, here he is in front of the World Trade Center with their eldest son. Pete Negron worked on the 88th floor of the North Tower as a project manager for Port Authority. Instead of happily ever after, it was an attack on America, an attack on her fairy tale. Hard to replace dreams with crumbling towers.
I just hope that he's just strong enough and he's alive someplace. And I don't care how crazy it may sound. I don't care if people look at me and think I'm crazy. I have that hope. I pray to God every day and I have that hope.
Officials are saying finding anyone alive now is beyond a miracle. That's the head talking. But the heart is not letting go. Not now, even if it has been 2 weeks. Maybe not ever. In Bergenfield, Vanessa Tyler, WB11 News at 10.
Straight ahead on the news at 10. Should they have guns? A proposal to arm pilots is one of many to make the skies safer.
And some big names from Broadway use their talents to help prop up business on the Great White Way.
This portion of the news brought to you by BMW. Stop dreaming, start driving. The ultimate driving machine.
All right, right now let's take another look at the numbers coming in from tonight's primary election.
Okay, we just got an acceptance speech from Michael Bloomberg, who won the Republican nomination and defeated Herman Badillo 2-1. He just made his acceptance speech. Let's take a look now at the Democratic numbers. So far, Fernando Ferrer has pulled slightly ahead of Mark Green with 22% of the precincts reporting, and Malone at 18%, and Alan Hevesy trailing at the very back at 12%. So those are the numbers so far, and of course they still could change, but at this point it looks like a runoff between Green and Freddie Ferrer.
In the wake of the terrorist hijackings, the airline industry is figuring out the most effective ways to beef up security. Among the possibilities, one that was almost unthinkable just weeks ago, loaded guns in the cockpit. Glenn Thompson has more.
While airport traffic is slowly returning, the few planes that are flying are half full. Many travelers afraid to take to the skies.
I think I probably would think twice about flying. I just don't think the systems are yet in place to ensure that what happened on the 11th doesn't happen again.
I really don't feel safe just yet.
At a Senate hearing, a major overhaul of airport security was the focus in Washington.
Historically, most aircraft hijackings were used as a means of extortion. Pilots were trained to fly the airplane during the hijacking and not exacerbate the situation. Today, the terrorist threat is very different. Today, we are dealing with a terrorist suicidal operations. The cockpit must be defended.
Federal aviation officials say they'll replace flimsy cockpit doors with bomb and bulletproof ones. Some pilots may be allowed to carry guns or tasers in the cockpits. Armed undercover federal marshals will be on board planes, and a new federal agency may take over airport security. There'll also be electronic verification for airline and airport workers after revelations the hijackings may have been an inside job. Carry-on luggage will be eliminated or severely restricted on some flights, and flight attendants will have to be retrained to deal with terrorist threats.
We know that those flight attendants prepared the cabin and conducted a pre-departure safety briefing, as they always do. Yet, we are left to only imagine what horrors happened next. We do know that this was nothing for which any of us have ever been trained.
One of the most revolutionary changes could be a computerized recognition system that actually compares your face to a nationwide criminal database. But these changes won't come cheap, up to $1 billion a year. I'm Glenn Thompson for the WB11 News at 10.
Well, firefighters have been working around the clock to find their fallen brothers, and today a much-needed break for one rescue company in Queens that was especially hard hit when some members of the New York Jets showed up with lunch. Long Island correspondent Rosemary Gomez has more now from Woodside.
Members of the New York Jets provided welcome relief to firefighters at Rescue Company 4 and the families of those still missing.
Football players aren't heroes, and these guys are the true heroes.
The Queens Company has 7 members among the missing, 5 firefighters, their lieutenant, and their captain, Brian Hickey. Though his wife has had little to smile about these days, she was happy to see her 4 children having lunch with the Jets.
It's going to bring a lot of joy to my children's hearts, and so I can get joy from that. And what do you tell your children? I mean, what are you saying? That he's one of the biggest heroes that ever walked New York.
Players used their day off to visit the company. It lost 3 firefighters in this Father's Day fire in Astoria, but with the World Trade Center, got a 1-2 punch.
These are wonderful men, family men. 2 of the wives are expecting children, and this is just devastating.
Firefighters here haven't had much time to rest since the terrorist attack. Many have not even been able to go home to see their own families. Still, they refuse to give up hope.
Somebody is down there, and we're not going to we're not going to give up. We're just not going to give up. That's.
Players also tried to remain optimistic in the face of such a great loss.
So I met one of the guys that came to the Jets facilities. He's one of the missing ones right now. And I hope deep down in the bottom of my heart that he's under there choreographing and rescuing other people right now.
Their only advice to their young fans was just try to keep going. In Woodside, I'm Rosemary Gomez for the WB11 News at 10.
Well, it's been a dismal 2 weeks for Broadway. Some shows closed for good, others struggling to stay alive. But now there are some signs that business is picking up again thanks to some creative efforts to keep those stage lights on. Tony Senecal joins us now with more on this. Tony.
That's right. Everyone is doing their part. And in an effort to help support Broadway and get theater goers back in the seats, some of Broadway's biggest, boldest names hooked up today to re-record the hit tune, New York, New York.
I want to wake up in a city that doesn't sleep, to find I'm king of the hill, top of the heap.
All of Broadway's famous faces were in the house. Bebe Neuwirth, Matthew Broderick, Peter Gallagher, Bernadette Peters, Valerie Harper, Michelle Lee, Dick Cavett, Joel Gray, and Alan Alda, just to name a few. And my favorite, Mr. Nathan Lane. How does it feel to be back on the Broadway stage?
It feels strange, but good. The audience told us it was all right, and I think people need to forget for a few hours, and it helps in that way.
And who knew Rhoda was old school Broadway?
I was a part of Broadway when I started, way before you were born, my darling. I was dancing and singing off Broadway on the St. James at my first show, 1958, 59.
You're lying.
I'm not lying.
Even Broadway's big star Broderick was starstruck. Who were you like most excited to see in there?
Oh man, I don't want to hurt any divas feelings, but I liked singing with. I had a little line with Bernadette Peters, so that was really fun for me.
Did you have a crush on her when you were a little boy? I think every guy did.
Yeah, I could probably. Yeah.
The mood was light. The message was strong.
You can refuse to let our freedom be encroached upon because of fear. We will not be ruled by fear.
You say it, girl. The re-recording is part of a campaign entitled Let's Get On With the Show. And if you go see a show by the end of October, $5 from every Broadway ticket you buy will be donated to the Mayor's Twin Towers Fund.
Excellent.
Isn't that great?
It's very good. Thank you, Tony.
Thanks,
Sure.
Coming up tonight, another major airline gets ready to announce huge job cuts in the wake of the attack.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.
This portion of the news brought to you by NASDAQ.
The markets ended today on another pretty positive note, despite a disappointing economic report. For more, let's go live to Melissa Lee. She's in tonight for Deborah Costrin at the business desk. Melissa.
Jim, Wall Street closed with a second day of gains, but the move wasn't as big as Monday's rally. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 56 points, with telephone stocks leading the way, and the Nasdaq gained 2 points. An up day despite a steep drop in consumer confidence, which sunk to its lowest level in more than 5.5 years. Consumers are less confident about the economy this month after the recent terrorist attacks and job cuts. To boost the economy, the Senate may pass a stimulus package that Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan says should be at least $100 billion. Delta Airlines is planning to announce tomorrow that it's cutting jobs and flights by as much as 20%. That could mean the elimination of 12,000 to 16,000 workers. Southwest Airlines is serving up a blue plate special on airfares. Southwest cut prices to as low as $34 one way to lure passengers back after the terrorist attack slowed demand for air travel. And job cuts have hit New Yorkers very hard. About 75,000 workers in New York filed for state unemployment benefits since the terrorist attacks, according to one U.S. Labor Department official. At the Bloomberg Financial News Desk, I'm Melissa Lee for the WB11 News at 10. Back to you guys in the
All
studio.
right, thanks, Melissa. When we come back, cooler weather definitely on the way. Mr. G coming up.
And now, weather with WB11's own Mr. G.
All right, everybody, we'll talk pollen count for the next 24 hours and around the region. Ragweed still high, hay fever season, mold grass still moderate. Now good news is heading in our direction. Get it going numbers outside, chilly. 59 humidity, 79 west, 9 split high and low, 72, 59. The normal should be right around 53. How chilly? Binghamton, 43. Allentown, 49. Take it to White Plains, 50. The city bottoming out in the mid-50s. Tomorrow, good-looking day. Normal against 73, 68. Town played in the 60s. From White Plains to Bridgeport, from Islip, east-west into the Hamptons. This is the radar. You see unstable air. It's an upper-level storm, pinwheeling moisture, but not a big deal. So for tomorrow, sun, a few clouds around. But the story will be football-like, fall, autumn-like weather, leaves changing, the cool air arriving, locking in from the Great Lakes, and that's going to be ours until further notice. So the chill will be on, kind of sweater, turtleneck deal, that kind of story. And for us, once again, as we watch the map and we begin to see the leading edge of the cold front working its way across the tri-state area, flyby zooming in. Again, the rain quitting down south, the rain quitting here, the dry air arriving. Line it up and hit it out. It's going to be a good look, but chilly. North and west 48 to 53, the city 54 to 59, sun and clouds, cool. 64 to 69 degrees. Here is your 5-day forecast. Got excited when I said turtleneck.
You'll be breaking them out soon, I know.
Very little things excite me. Wednesday, partly sunny, 67. Maybe a stray shower on Thursday. I like Friday. I like Saturday. I like Sunday. Love the weekend. All 3 days in the 60s.
All right, thank you very much,
Thanks,
G. Sal here with more drama from the baseball
Yeah.
diamond.
That's right, Jim. The plot thickens. Another emotion-charged night on a New York baseball diamond. Last Friday night it was Shea. Tonight, the Yankee Stadium stirring pregame ceremonies as the Yankees return home. The Mets shut out the Expos, and here comes Mr. Jordan.
This is John Franco. Sal Sports is next, if you keep it where it is.
And now, WB11 Sports with Sal Marciano.
Baseball was back at Yankee Stadium for the first time since the terrorist attacks. The Yankees going for a clinch of their 4th straight American League East title and 5th in 6 years. More than 33,000 fans on hand for special 30-minute tribute before the game. Joe Torre escorted Mayor Giuliani to the mound as the fans cheered him with a standing ovation. 21 Roger Clemens off to the best start in Major League history. Shaky in the first inning. Toby Hall singled home Steve Cox. Devil Rays took a 2-0 lead. In the 4th inning, another milestone for the Rocket. He struck out Toby Hall. Clemens passed Bert Blyleven for 3rd in the all-time strikeout list with 3,703. Clemens went 6 innings, giving up 2 runs, struck out 8. Bottom of the 8th, Yanks losing 4-0, but the Red Sox just lost, so the Yankees clinched. They're in the playoffs for the 7th straight year, but George Steinbrenner still hasn't rewarded his manager and general manager with extended contracts. 2 days after their most disappointing loss of the season, the Mets bounced back in Montreal with a shutout of the Expos. Scoreless. Mets second. Desi Relaford filling in for the injured Robin Ventura. Stroke an RBI double off Carl Pavano. Jay Payton came around from first base to open the scoring. In the Mets 6th, Pavano's first pitch to Mike Piazza. That's a line drive raminator, baby. Number 35 for Mike, and it was 2-0 Mets. Hot grab of the game, Brian Schneider unloads to center. Jay Payton dangerously close to the fence. Kevin Apier with his first complete game of the season, a 4-hit shutout for his 9th win. He struck out 3, walked 1, final 2-0 Mets. They've won 23 of the last 29. You got to believe. The Mets' first place lead, they cut the first place lead to 3.5, and that's temporarily. In FLA, the Braves and Marlins went extra innings in the 4th. Braves leading 2-1. Chipper Jones couldn't handle Charles Johnson's shot to 3rd. An error for Larry. Kevin Millar scored to tie the game at 2. Still tied in the 11th. B.J. Surhoff singled in Chipper Jones with the go-ahead run. Braves took the lead 3-2. That's where they stand in the 11th. A Braves win puts them 4 games in front of the Mets. Philadelphia lost at home to Cincinnati in the first meeting this season between the two teams. The Phillies drop a half game in back of the Braves. Reds led 1-0 in the 4th. Rookie David Coggin facing Ken Griffey Jr. Kiss that baby goodbye. No one aboard Griffey's 21st. Reds on top 2-0. Cincy added 4 in the 6th, 2 in the 7th, spanking the Phils 8-1. Michael Jordan made it official. After a 3-year absence, he's coming back to play in the NBA, and he'll donate his entire salary to relief funds benefiting victims of the terrorist attacks. Jordan turns 39 in the middle of the Washington Wizards' coming season, but Knicks coach Jeff Van Gundy believes he can still be a top player, and he can put the Wizards in a position to qualify for the playoffs. Here are some other reactions.
I expect him to, to practice every day and do the things he's always done. The one thing about Michael Jordan, you don't have to motivate him. This is one of the most self-driven human beings I've ever been around in my entire life. I mean, he's never been afraid to risk failure. I mean, I think that's an unbelievable quality he has. I mean, there's a lot of people who are fearful of putting themselves in that position. Michael thrives on that.
I said, Michael, are you a little fearful? Maybe some of these young guys, the Iversons and the Kobe Bryants, maybe going to run around you a little bit? He said, Mr. P, don't worry. I said, why? He said, I'll outsmart him. So that's Michael.
A special good night to the Scooter. Phil Rizzuto, the Hall of Famer, turns 83. Holy cow.
Holy
That's
cow,
it in
indeed.
sports.
Okay, thank you, Sal. Still ahead tonight, should commercial airline pilots be allowed to carry guns on board? That's tonight's Tell Us the 10 question. Log on to WB11.com to cast your vote. The results are next.
Right now, take a look at your winning lottery numbers for tonight. We'll be right back.
Now, the results of the WB11 News tell us at 10.
All right, here's what we asked tonight. Do you think commercial airline pilots should be allowed to carry guns on board? Pretty overwhelming. 65% of you responding said yes. Only 35% said no.
All right, let's take one more look at the primary races now. On the Republican side, let's take a look at that first. Michael Bloomberg is the GOP candidate with 25% of the precincts reporting. He has gained 66% of the vote compared to just 34% for Herman Badillo. As for the Democrats, their candidate must get at least 40% of the votes to win. Well, the numbers so far are pointing towards a runoff between Mark Green and Freddie Ferrer. They were the front runners before September 11th. Now, with 25% reporting, Ferrer has a slight lead with 36%, Green with 32%, and of course now we're looking at Peter Belloni at 18% and Alan Hevesy 12%. Jim?
Also voting today in Nassau County as folks went to the polls to determine who's going to be the Democratic nominee for Nassau County Executive. The numbers show Glen Cove Mayor Thomas Swatsy pulling ahead. He has 53% of the vote at this point. Assemblyman Thomas DiNapoli has 47%. That's with 84% of the precincts reporting.
Busy night.
Busy night. Complete results coming up on the WB11 Morning News.
Absolutely.
That's it for us on this edition of the WB11 News at 10. I'm Jim Watkins.
And I'm Connie Chong. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow. Everybody Loves Raymond is next. Good night.
Closed captioning is brought to you as a public service by your local Tri-State Dodge dealers.
The WB11 News at 10, winner of the prestigious Edward R. Murrow Award for Best Newscast in New York.